Hey everyone, welcome to my Once Human farming guide. We're going to be going over the basics of setting up everything, as well as like the, I guess, higher end, space efficient, how to make a good setup. As you see here, the system I have set up is it's about everything you can fit into one waterer in terms of planter boxes. You can also use loamy soil, which is actually a better, more space efficient soil for farming. It's slower to grow in, but you can fit a lot more in the same area than you can planter boxes, at least currently. I assume they'll fix that, or not fix, change that sometimes in the future, because it doesn't really make sense that the loamy soil would be a better soil type for farming in terms of like efficiency and all that. But currently the way it is, loamy soil is more space efficient than planter boxes for farming. But that's besides the point. You can see here I'm hovering the water system, the irrigation system, and it gives you a ring in the area in which it will water. And you can see from the ring and the planter boxes I have down, it's pretty much anything you can fit in terms of planter boxes. There's also a grow light on the ceiling. For this to work, you need the irrigation system, and then you need the grow light exactly above it. And then you need the grow light to be 2.5 tiles above. So you can see I have a wall here, right? So it's one tile. This is a half wall. And then the ceiling is one more. So it ends up being 2.5 squares up. If you want, you could use like, you could use a floating foundation on this if you didn't want a roof, or I don't know, whatever you had going on in terms of like your building layout. The world's your oyster, if you will. But it needs to be 2.5 tiles above. So that's just for like the one irrigation, one grow light setup for this sort of thing. You can, build a couple of these, right? I only have one, but if I wanted to, I could put another one in this area here, or, another one in the back or whatever. You can duplicate this as much as you want for as much growing as you need. But just one of these, honestly, puts out a lot of crops. So the two things this system needs, other than, the obvious thing of seeds to plant, is water and electricity. Electricity runs both the irrigation system as well as the grow light, and then you need the water to run for the actual irrigation system. The system does require purified water, so you can't just like hook it up to a rain catcher or something like that. You need to purify it somehow. I use a large water filter for this. You can use one small water filter, and you will put out enough water to keep the irrigation system running. The way the math works out with one small water filter, it'll add enough water so the irrigation system can maintain a certain water level. So if your planter boxes are at 0, right, because there's 0 when you build them, and you only have one small water filter, the water level will never go up because it won't be getting enough water. But if your planter boxes are at whatever they need to be, so if you like go around manually water them and then hook them up, like that'll work. My recommendation would just get the large water filter. It's just so much easier. You could do 2 small water filters, but at that point you're using more power to power 2 small water filters than you would for just one large, and one large water filter puts out way more water anyway. So yeah, just make the large water filter. It's a lot easier. And then you need some sort of water source into this. Just one pump works fine. You could try using the rain collectors to fill into this, but I can't give you a number for like, oh yeah, you would need this many water collectors to make this work, because the way water collectors work is they only get water when it rains. So depending what biome you're in will depend on how much water you're getting. And if you're in some biomes, you just won't even get rain at all. So I mean, I'd recommend just get a water pump and then hook it up to your filter, and then hook that filter up to a water tank if you want. You don't have to. You could just hook it directly to the irrigation system. That works fine as well. One thing to note with the water in this game is you can see how the water lines illuminate and flow in a direction, because water in this game through water pipes is affected by gravity. So you need to make sure the water is flowing downhill the whole way. If you want to get water uphill, you need to use a water pump. one of these bad boys, and it'll let you push water in a direction. So I've not used one of these personally myself, but I know you need these if you want to push water against gravity. I think it's easiest just to build a water pump like really high up, because when you're building them, you can choose what elevation they're at, right? You just hold Alt and scroll the wheel. So you just build them up really high and then easily just drag the pipes to go in that direction. Luckily with the large water filter and all that, you know, this is slightly taller than this, and then this is taller than this. So it just kind of naturally flows downhill in that way. And then for your power source, you just need one for a grow light, again, and for the irrigation system. It's not that much power. If you add a large water filter and a water pump, you're looking at, what, like 2 biomass generators or something. You can just run solar panels. I think solar panels or these hydro wheels are definitely going to be your better bet. Or if you're in a polluted area, you could even run the deviant power generators. But you need some sort of power solution just to get this stuff going. As for what you're planting, you know, you can plant whatever you need into the planter boxes. The irrigation system and the light both have a setting on them. So you can see here it says target irrigation. You can change that with F. So it will go up to 100, and once it's at 100, if you hit it again, it resets down to 10. One thing to keep in mind for the irrigation system is your irrigation number on your plants. Let's see if we can catch it. So here we go. It'll go down by 1 occasionally. So the target is 70. So it'll go down to 69. So in other words, if I wanted to set irrigation here, don't set it at 50, because it'll sometimes tick down to 49 and then it's in the yellow. So just make sure it's either at the top end of your target or, like, you know, somewhere in the middle. It doesn't change how much water it's using based on the irrigation you set it to. It's always going to use the same amount of water no matter what. So just set it at a good value, and you know, you don't have to worry about it. Same thing with the light. I can't actually change my light unless I have to build like a platform so I can get closer to it to change it. But it's the same as the irrigation system. It just has a little thing that says target, and it always uses the same amount of power no matter what target you set it at. For when you're actually planting crops, there's a couple of fertilizers in the game. Unfortunately, a lot of them are not very good. The only fertilizer that's, in my opinion, like at all valuable is the breeding boost. This one, the breeding boost fertilizer, because what this will do is it'll just get you extra seeds. So if you want to like start with 10 seeds or whatever, you know, if you have some small amount of seeds, you can run your farms a couple cycles with breeding boost just to really start multiplying the number of seeds you had, so you can leave the farm running longer without having to replenish the seeds. While you're farming, you do get seeds back, and usually at a pretty good rate, so you don't have to worry about using your seeds and then going back and having to get more and all that. Usually are pretty okay with in terms of seed sustain. We'll go check what I have going on over here. I just pulled actually the seeds out, so I'm not gonna have a lot, but I mean, I put in 250 blueberry seeds. We have 49 here. We have what, 1 here or whatever, and then there's still 182, and then there's a whole field planted down there. So I'm still about even. I think I actually go up slightly every cycle. I do run regular fertilizer, so that's the other one of the other fertilizers I think you could run or should run. Is just the regular fertilizer. It just gives you more outputs. And then the last one would probably be the mimetic. This is not like efficient to try to get and like use. This one right here, the improved compound fertilizer. What this will just get you higher rate of mutation and higher yield, but slows down growth. And if you use this fertilizer and plant mushrooms, you will not have more mushrooms to make more fertilizer than you use to plant the mushrooms with, if that makes sense. You lose mutant mushrooms every time you run this, so it's not good. Don't do it. So you'd only really use that for something that you absolutely need deviated crops for, like whatever buff food you're running. If it needs some sort of deviated crop, you would run that for that. But for the most part, you're just going to be running fertilizer, regular fertilizer, or the seed boost fertilizer, depending on what your needs are. You make regular fertilizer in these compost bins. You put in anything. You can put in spoiled food or any like actual food items you may have. Personally, I think like one of the best things to do is grow some sort of berry like hawthorn or blueberry, whatever. They all grow really fast, and then you can just leave them. You can leave them in a bin to spoil. Probably the best way to get spoiled food. So this is just, you know, blueberries I've just left in this bin, and they spoil extremely quickly if they're not refrigerated. And then you have this spoiled food, and you can use this to either make fertilizer or make actual farm plots themselves. But now it's here if you need it. And then, yeah, like I said, you go in a compost bin and you make some fertilizer. I believe this runs 4 crafts at a time. Yeah. So you can see all 4 crafts are all crafting at the same time. So if you want to make a large amount of fertilizer, split it up. If you want to make 60, instead of just doing 1 craft of 60, do 4 stacks of 15, and you'll end up getting your fertilizer much faster. This works in a lot of benches in general, but it's kind of outside of the scope of the video. Like advanced benches, you can do 2 crafts simultaneously. But in compost bins, you can do 4. So just split up your crafts if you're making fertilizer and you want it and you need it sooner rather than later. I showed him off just a second ago, but one of the last pieces of the puzzle for getting your farms up and running is our little buddy, the Growshroom here. He'll do all your planting and harvesting for you, and then it just shows up here in his little inventory, and you come out and you pull it out when you're ready. You can just take the seeds out of here and immediately just feed them back in, and it's fine. You know, it'll work great. And then you need to put fertilizer in there every now and then, because they do use it every time you plant it, assuming you are trying to get, you know, higher yields from your crops. To get one of these guys, you need to gather mushrooms. Now these Growshrooms themselves will actually, if you were to plant mushroom seeds here and they go out and they harvest them, they'll actually get Growshrooms from the mushrooms that they plant occasionally. If you're just starting and you don't have any Growshrooms and you need to get some, there's a couple places on the map where there's a lot of mushrooms. There's some here. You can see this like hole here. It's because there's a cave under this mountain, right? And there's like mushrooms and bears and stuff down there. But I think the one that most people use for mushroom farming would be here, over at Central Sunbury Teleportation Tower between Sunbury and Sunbury Middle School. You can see another hole here because there's another cave here. So when you load in from your teleport, you'll see on the map, you know, there's a hole over here. Let me up. And ta-da, there's a big old cave down here. And there's just going to be mushrooms growing down here, and you can just grab them and get your Growshroom eventually, whenever Lady Luck decides to bless you with your Growshroom. This is how I did it. Honestly, not that long ago. Maybe a week or whatever ago, I got my Growshrooms and started setting all this up. But there's a lot down here. There's like random animals down here too. There's deers and capybaras and scarlet whatever. The reeds. This is what you can use this also. So you can get this while you're down here, the scarlet calamus, because you can use this to make the breed boost fertilizer. But yeah, this is where you can farm your Growshroom. And when you get one, you know, you can plant mushrooms and get another one, or just keep doing it. So to look at what this looks like in terms of actually building this, the best way to look at this from a planter box point of view is this is a 5x5 of planter boxes. Right, so if you just look at it, it's 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then you delete the middle planter box and put the water irrigation exactly in the center, and then you get 3 on each edge in the center, so it ends up looking like, I don't know, a star with the ends tipped off or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so it looks like that, at least from the planter boxes. If you want to know what it looks like if you use loamy soil. One thing you will have to think about if you're running this loamy soil build, which I actually completely forgot about until I just now tried to build this, is that each one of these loamy soils is actually a function facility. You see at the top of the screen there, I'm at 250 of 250. I can't even finish this build with my current base because I am at the function facility cap. So a lot of stuff is, you know, our function facilities, which is, you know, everything in here. It's like all your benches, your crafting, pumps, everything. Like all this stuff's function. So if you have a base, if this is like your main base, has all your crafting and whatnot, you might be limited. This will end up being, what did I math? It's like 112, I think, plots. So it's actually not that much. It'll be like, you know, it's less than half of your total function facility. So it shouldn't be unreasonable to run one of these inside of a main base and still be okay. Cause like I have this many. If I go and delete my current farm and then just put loamy soil, it should actually all fit. And I'm also running some like oil pumps and stuff back here. So I'm using facilities on this as well. So it should be pretty reasonable that you could get all this to fit into a base that you just are using normally. If you're, you know, doing acid farming or like really more oil than what I'm doing or whatever, you might not be able to do all this, but yeah. So in general, it's like a pretty normal uniform shape. The corners here. So I originally had plots like here and here, but they don't get water. They're too far away, even though they're like halfway in. So if we move one of these here, you can see it looks like it maybe gets water, but it does not. So you can't do that. But yeah, so that's like the loamy soil build. Obviously, like I said, you know, it'll come out all the way and whatnot. One thing I'm going to talk about, if you're going to build a planter box type build like this, like that way I have set up here, is this water tank. You can't fit it here. See, like I have it set up over here. If the planter box and wall are already down, it won't fit. But if you put this down early and then move a planter box into that location, it will then fit. So the planter box, or so the water tank just has to be put down before the planter box. That's it. And then you can easily fit like a filter in here because they're much smaller, right? But it doesn't work if the planter box is here. This water tank won't fit if you just try to add it in, right? So we just saw I had one there, and if I try to put it back, it now just doesn't fit anymore. For some reason, the planter box is like a bigger radius when you're trying to build next to it than when you're actually trying to build it itself. Not sure. It's just some weird thing. But yeah, I think that's about it for like the basics of farming and all that. If you wanted to get farming earlier, I mean, you could just put a bunch of loamy soil out on a platform and just like hope for rain and stuff. The biggest issue with that right now, especially if you're playing on a server that has the low grav event, which is currently active, is while you have the low gravity event going on, which it is right now, it can't rain. Like, this low gravity event is considered weather, so it can't rain while this is happening. You don't get sunlight if you're using like a solar drill or whatever. Like, this blocks all weather effects while it's active, so there's a lot less rain and stuff going on in general. So I think you really should probably wait until you get irrigation and grow lights and stuff to get into farming, at least on the high scale, because it's pretty unreasonable without it. But yeah, that's it for this farming guide. I hope this helped people. When I was looking up stuff for farming, I definitely know I had a hell of a time finding information. So yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. If this guide was helpful to you, you know, please subscribe and like to the channel and the video and blah blah blah, and hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you later.